if we're streaming? All right, thank you. So I've heard it all now. But we are streaming, so we'll go ahead and get started with our meeting and our work session. And I'll go ahead and ask Kim Rice if she will. We'll put you up first. Why do you giggle, Kim, about that?
Because I'm not pretty.
It's that nervous laugh.
Yeah, not pretty. And I didn't make enough coffee because I didn't realize it was a full quart. I apologize. You might have to do a little sharing. Doug has already seen all
Yeah.
this.
I'd also like to greet our friend and Parks and Rec board member, Daniel T. Wells. It's good to have him here.
Hey, I came with guns loaded. So, I'm not sure if everybody is aware. We've been going through the process over the last couple of years trying to analyze the HVAC system at the pavilion. It is beyond its life expectancy. The HVAC system, and I say HVAC system because it's more than just the HVAC system, but that's the best terminology I can come up with. Air handling. What was originally installed at the pavilion is called a Dectron, and it's to handle the air quality within an auditorium. The life expectancy is 12 to 15 years. We are on year 22. And because it has not been working at maximum capacity over the last several years, we have some structural issues that need to be considered when it comes to replacing the units. I know, I'm trying not to, I got heels on. And for some reason I have an extra sheet in here. We have been working with Comfort Process Solutions on analyzing what we need. At the time the pavilion was built, a Dectron was the best of the technology out there for handling air within auditoriums. Now the technology has changed. We also have...
Yeah, I got little.
What's he say?
No, we were in
Stacy. Hey, Stacy.
Oh, I'm
You muted just in time.
And Kim, if you want to wait until you go to the Jeff, will you make sure the microphone's on? And then I'll remind the court, and I've got to get David's fixed, to speak and to maximize the audio. You have to push and leave it pushed on, and if you don't want to speak, you can just turn it off and the light goes away. So that's just a reminder. And we do have one of our magistrates on remotely, Tim Thompson. Tim, how are you? Tim's with us remotely. So, Kim, we'll turn you loose. And
okay. So what we're looking at is more than just the replacement system for the Dectron. Because there's new technologies out there, we're looking at the way the Dectron works right now. You pull the water up to the roof, heat it, and come back down. We don't have any pool heaters. So what we're going to be doing is moving the pool heaters down into the basement, replacing boilers, replacing several units, realigning our ductwork to be able to push the chloramines off the surface of the pool, put in some chloramine sensors so that it's able to purge the auditorium on a regular basis as needed. There's lots of stuff going on here. We're going to also get a couple of big-ass fans in there to help make sure that there's air circulation. If anybody has been in the auditorium in the last 3 to 4 years, you can visibly and feel the deterioration of the air quality within that area. But because it has been deteriorating for a while, we do have some structural issues with our 2 mezzanines. And the Building and Grounds Committee for the Parks Board has gone with the recommendations from C-Logic to remove both mezzanines. We had them price out several different options, including reinforcing the joists and the trusses that go across the mezzanines, repairing the deterioration, the corrosion, or also putting in supports underneath the mezzanines. And the cheapest and most viable option is to actually remove both mezzanines. The piping for the northeast mezzanine for the pool is actually directly below, so we're afraid that if we were to put any supports underneath the northeast mezzanine that we would disturb the pipes or even the pool shell. So the lowest risk is to tear
just
them
for clarification, the mezzanines I call balconies.
out. Observation deck.
Observation areas, there's 2 of them.
That's correct.
So
We have a small one that's on the south end of the auditorium. It was actually not in the original specs or the original blueprints for the pavilion, and that one is hanging on one truss. All supports are on one truss. Then we have the northeast one, which is the larger of the 2 that has bleachers on it. It is typically only used for swim meets. It goes across supports or across the trusses, but it has the most deterioration because of how heavy it is. So anywhere that's where we're having most of the deterioration is where the mezzanines.
Deterioration, like rusting or?
Yes.
Okay.
Not just rusting. You can stick a knife through the joist.
Gotcha. Okay. So
Yeah. It's bad.
Pulling the roof down, there's a bonding on the roof.
Mm-hmm. And we've had them closed off for 6 weeks now, below and above. Now, what's not included we've got 2 separate estimates. We have an estimate from CPS to do all of the air handling work, and then we have an estimate from C-Logic. We'll actually have to go out as an RFQ for the removal of the mezzanines and the repair of the structural issues. The total is just over 1.6. We will still have to probably repair the pool deck after all the construction work is done, and we will have to remove the doors from the second floor and replace them with either windows or block or something along those lines. And we do not have pricing on that yet. The city and the county have been in the conversations as we've been going through this process. Do you want to talk about our meeting last week, Judge?
Well,
Mayor?
we met with the mayor and some vendors, contractors, and discussed the situation. You know, what I wanted clarity on was a timeline, and you know, how we could navigate the request, and then I wanted, you know, you're here today. I wanted you to present the information, and that way, any of our court members could ask questions directly instead of going through me to you and back and forth.
Absolutely. So the timeline, it'll be done in phases. If we get it approved by our board at our next board meeting or at a special board meeting between now and then, they can start the ducting work within the month. We are hoping that the structural work and the ducting work can be done at the same time to minimize closure, but the actual replacement on the units is at 35 weeks right now. So we can get the majority of all the systems in place except for the actual units that are on the long lead time. There's only 3 companies that produce units to handle auditoriums. We are not going with the same company as we originally had with the Dectron. There's been some buyouts, and they've not upgraded their technology over the years. So what we're looking at is something that's called a pool pack, and I believe it's a trained manufactured unit. And it's not an all system in one,
So if
which is
it's
what we have now.
35 weeks out for the actual handler, do we pay up front for the handler, or do we pay once it's installed and work's completed?
We will pay for the handlers once it's installed and the work is complete, but we can do incremental billing as we're doing the ducting work and the big-ass fans and the removal of the observation decks and the new boiler and all the other things that we can get our hands on until we get the big units, which are the pool packs.
So part of my thought process was, of course, this is a request to your all's consideration, but one option that we have is looking at, and I've already spoken with Michelle about our standing on our reserve for transfer. Could we pay part of the request out of this year's budget reserve for transfer, and then out of next year's budget, right into next year's budget, the balance of the request? That was on my mind as well, and would value input from you all in regards to that. What questions does anyone have for Kim in regards to the request? And
Go back for me a little bit. I got confused about what you're saying here. So there's 1.5 for the HVAC for the pool, and then how much to remove the seating?
65.
65 total.
Yes. I believe it's 20 for the small and 35 for the, or 50, 45. Yeah, it's in the, to the two mezzanine demos.
And what did you say was 1.6?
They're not coming back. That's adding the two together. Now, the whole request is not from the court. It would be a split between the city and the court.
Now, I would just say that I would get in writing that the warranty starts when things are installed, not when because that's what you'll end up with, a year warranty, and it starts after it's installed. So
After it's approved and turned
Right.
on.
Yeah, exactly.
no, as soon as sometimes warranties will start as soon as you get the equipment, and it's not working yet.
So you're saying the warranty should be once the system is active.
Fully in
Been
place.
inspected and
Functional.
functioning for so many days or whatever. Get your warranty after
I like that word functional. That's better than active, activated, functional.
working properly.
Yeah. What other questions?
I bet you can get 2 years out of CPS too on your warranty.
Yes, typically, yeah. They have been our service provider for, I don't know, maybe 8 years. Before that, it was Thermal. And actually, the owner of CPS used to work for Thermal, so he was with us when the building first opened.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I mean, they're good people.
I'm sure you know him.
Yeah, he's good.
Rick, you're looking like you.
Well, what's bothering me most is the structural damage. And I haven't had time to review this thing, obviously, but, I mean, that, you said you could stick a knife through it? That's pretty severe. I mean, just how safe is it? Right now?
Right now, it's safe. Right, like I've walked out on it. We walk out on it to look at it, and
You got harness on?
yeah, they'll hold up to 10 people at this moment. We cannot open it to the public, based on,
Not allowed to matter, not
yeah.
But that's my concern, so, but that's gonna go away.
They're completely going to go away. That's
Yeah.
correct.
And then they're gonna, I'm sure it's in here, but then you're gonna beef up the existing structure.
It's not going to require it.
Really?
Yeah, they're going to repair where the corrosion is, but it's not going to have to be beefed up if we take the mezzanines down.
Kim, I know that when you all have swim meets, there's a lot of people there, and there's a lot of people that utilize that area. What is your all's plan to deal with that? When you remove that seating, what's your all's plan to deal with where all the people are going to go for the swim meets?
Well, they'll be staged in the gymnasium. DT, do you want to talk about how other swim
I
facilities?
think you're talking about observing,
Yes.
not, I mean, you said staged. but
Yes.
You're talking more parents watching.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
We thought the possibility of streaming it into the gymnasium.
We come to the mic, DT.
Yeah.
There's a possibility of streaming it into the gymnasium.
Well, and our facility is atypical in that we have had the observation decks. Most facilities do not have that opportunity, so they come to us because that's cool, but
There's just a little bit more room maybe for a little bit more seating, right? Some chairs, something like that.
not during swim meets.
Yeah, they want the deck only that.
All the official people.
Yeah, and I mean, there's windows completely around the top side to where people could stand and still look in. But I mean, we've held state meets recently with no spectators. If it means we have a facility to swim in on the school side, then we'll take the facility to swim in rather than worry about people being able to watch.
Anyone else?
CPS is okay to do training.
Mm-hmm.
So I still, will you send us a timeline that says we need X dollars here, X dollars there?
Yes.
And
ASAP.
I mean that's something we need when we need the money. And
Now, I don't know how the incremental billing is going to be broke up at this point. I'll get with the vendor and see, when the duct work's done, how much is this much going to be so that I'll understand what that timeline may look like. It looks like for the first phase of it, we will be closed at least 3 weeks. Not the entire facility, just the auditorium. And that's for the duct work, diffusers, the fan, and all that kind of stuff, and also the demo of both of the mezzanines.
can all your cleaning be done at that same time?
I don't really want to close the entire facility because we're looking at our busiest
Well, I'm just
period.
talking about your pool.
I'm not going to want my staff in there while they're doing that, no. And
Well,
so typically during shutdown, when we do our cleaning, we drain the pool.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
We do not want to drain the pool while we're doing this because we want to have that pressure on the sidewalls as they're in there with the heavy equipment.
So CPS, are they the ones that, do you have an architect or anybody?
Yes, Lexington Design is the one who did the architectural work that you're looking at. C-Logic is the one who did the structural analysis. They are not a part of KPC, so that'll have to go out to quote. This is just an estimate, but CPS is part of KPC. So I'm working with Andrew to be able to get them verified to be able to purchase off of KPC.
So is KPC like a state bid contract?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And the reality is when it comes to auditorium units, it's very specialized.
So to move this along, I will ask Court to send me any additional questions between now and Thursday. And then, Kim, will you come back on Friday? We'll put this on the agenda for Friday for consideration.
And what time is it?
9 a.m.
Judge, one question. Has Parks and Recreation submitted their operating budget to you yet?
They have.
Okay, can you send that to us?
I am working through with the Budget Committee.
Okay.
And then after we go through with the Budget Committee, I can send it to you anyway. It doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
But I've just been sticking to my, practice of the Budget Committee goes through and looks at considerations and then submits to you all what the Budget Committee, at the same time as showing what was originally requested. But I can send it to you. It's not a problem.
And I did include this in my budget request for capital because I know that the city is going to want to do it in the new fiscal year. The city is going to want to pay their bills in the new fiscal year.
Right.
Yeah. They don't have the flexibility of the reserve for transfer option. So.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Judge?
Tim Thompson.
Yes, sir. Ms. Rice, could you send me the information that you just gave the court via email?
Absolutely.
So we're looking at roughly around 800,000. Is that what we're looking at?
781 is where it stands right now. And I will tell you that it has gone up $3,000 in the past 3 weeks on the CPS.
So, yeah, we need to lock them in. Any other questions?
Yes, one of the units.
Probably electrician's price.
Yeah. One of the units priced higher.
I don't know how y'all. So, just one more question about so CPS is the one that did this report?
That was done by Lexington Design with CPS. They did it together, yes.
I'm just wondering who's putting this together and, just a little check about it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
This is huge.
They did it cooperatively, Lexington Design and CPS.
We appreciate you coming, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Job, DT.
Well, since Griff is sitting next to DT and closest to the microphone, Griff, would you
Thanks for giving us the time. I'm going to call Denise up in just a moment. My name is Griff Ray, and I'm the president of the board for the Gathering Place mission, and I've been on the board for the last close to 4 years. And so we appreciate the support that you guys have given us over the past few years, and just wanted to share kind of some things that are going on right now, and wanted to let you know some exciting things happening and request your support for the future of the mission. So I think we have, can you see the slides somewhere? Okay, great. It's like, are they behind me, like magically or something? But I can go ahead and start talking about the mission. It started 20 years ago with Donna Darnell. Probably a lot of you know Donna and her family and their significance here. And she's getting an email verification. This is top secret stuff, guys. So, but Donna was cooking dinner one night and noticed walking down the street that there was a homeless person. And she just felt moved by the love of God to go offer that person a meal out of her back door. And that was really the start of the Gathering Place mission, was that first meal. And the next night, he showed up again with someone else. We're on slide 2 there. Just talking about the beginnings of the mission. And a lot of lives have been impacted since that. They eventually started the Emmaus Kitchen, which just began feeding people, homeless and people in the neighborhood that were struggling. And then that led eventually to the beginning of a men's shelter, which was followed by a women's shelter, which was relocated very close to where it is now on Bourbon Street. And just a lot of phenomenal and very messy work when you're dealing with people that are in really tough places, a lot of brokenness in their life. It's a lot of tough work, but with the right kind of help and support, amazing things can happen. Denise, would you come up? Denise is the executive director of the shelter and has worked there a couple different occasions, and I like to say she's sweet as sugar and tough as nails. She is both of those things. So will you just share a story of what we're talking about?
Yep. We have a lot of success stories that are absolutely amazing in both the men and the women, but one that stands out to me was a lady from Tennessee who got into a vehicle from bad choices, got into a vehicle with somebody she did not know, and got dropped off at the truck stop up by Delaplane. And she was brought in by the sheriff department. She was a prostitute, heroin addict, and we took her in, loved her. Within 3 weeks, she had a job, and for the last 3 years, she has consistently went up in her job. She just moved back down to Tennessee, where her kids are now involved with her life. But she was with us for about 8 months before she got her own place and lived on her own for the last 2 years and 4 months, paying bills and doing good, drug-free. And she just moved last month back to Tennessee, where her kids accepted her to come back and be a part of her life. And I think that's one of the very amazing stories that we have.
Yeah, she worked at Toyota, right?
Yep, through SMC.
Yeah.
So.
Stay close in case they've got some questions I can't answer. But our mission is to see people who are shelter dependent become self-sufficient. We of course want to give relief in those situations where someone comes in and they're hungry, they're tired, they need a warm bed. We'll always say yes to those situations if we have capacity, but we really have a heart to see really people move from that dependency state to self-sufficiency where they're giving back to the community and a part of that community. So a lot of amazing things. Let me just show you some numbers. And it's important when I talk about numbers that we recognize numbers are actually people. They're not just numbers. But a lot of these are just the last 5 years. If you look at some of the numbers, 2018, almost 22,000 meals, almost 7,000 nights, over 200 people served. 2019, over 22,000 meals, 7,200 nights stays. That's warm beds provided, over 200 served. 2020, I don't know if you remember, but a couple interesting things happened that year. So our numbers go down a little bit. That was for capacity. We had to spread people out. But our meals went up, over 26,000, 5,000 nights stayed, 160 served, 2021. Similar numbers year by year by year. And so far, we're at 7,500 meals this year, 1,600 nights stayed, and then 67 individuals served. So we're on par to be at about those same numbers for this year. And then something, we were actually able to talk to Judge Covington as winter was coming on, and something really cool this year, we were able to provide a cold weather shelter. 153 nights people stayed, 26 different people. 5 of those became residents, so they took the next step toward healing and toward wholeness, and 2 of those people even entered recovery. And so just some fantastic things happening there. The next slide kind of gives
you... If I could stop you right there, though.
Yes, sir.
You know, that cold weather shelter, I really want to say and make a point that we appreciate that partnership because, as you show, you know, people had a warm place to stay and had an option that otherwise did not exist. Yeah. So we appreciate it and look forward to continuing to hopefully we could partner in the future as well.
Yeah, that's our desire as well, and it fit really well with what we were trying to do anyway. But a lot of times people just, you know, they're worried about someone stealing their stuff or whatever. They won't show up at a shelter, and that just gave them the extra incentive. And for some of those people, hopefully a pathway toward wholeness and healing in their life. So since the beginning of the Gathering Place mission, now over 10 years ago, approximately 250,000 meals have been served in this community, hot meals for people. And over 5,000 people, individual people, have had a warm place to sleep. And I would say, and someone to care about them. Everyone that comes in, our desire is to work with them through the mess. A lot of times it's just they have no ID, no birth certificate, nothing. And it's going through that process of just getting them legally registered so that they can find work. Then we get them involved in work-ready programs that we've partnered with. And really our desire is to really see them return to community, not return to the shelter. And so we're really working on that and trying to develop that. So a couple things that are going on right now. We are currently, the next slide, we are doubling the men's shelter capacity. We've raised the funds for that, and we're starting the renovation. That is the room that was used for the cold weather shelter. We are getting ready to pull the trigger. But as the judge said, the need at the moment was for a place for people to go. So we put that on pause for 4 months to be able to provide that. We will also be able to provide shelter for families or men with children. We actually get calls now of men who are homeless with children, and we have to turn them away because we can't put them in with the general population of other men. We're partnering with Transform Scott County coming up in the next couple months, a program called Circles. If you've not heard of it, it's phenomenal. It's an 18-month program to work with people to move them permanently out of poverty. It's volunteer led, and it's an incredible program. And then we're having a meeting coming up here in just a couple weeks with BCTC. They want to offer scholarships and childcare so that we can get our clients a better education to get them to a new place. So a lot of phenomenal things. I think that the thing, I'm just trying to give you a scope. I don't know how familiar you are with Gathering Place. But the important thing to recognize about our history is we were started by someone, just an incredibly generous person. And for over 10 years, we existed on the generosity of that family, of the Darnell family. And she's no longer part of us formally. She lives right next door, and we still use her properties, and we've started leasing that property. We currently lease 4 properties, and for 10 years, she gave us 2 properties for $0. Like, when I came on the board, I didn't even realize that would be something we need to do. So a lot of what I'm trying to get at is we would love to be a permanent cornerstone of care in this community and continue to do this forever. But with just having lease space, there's not a lot of permanence with that. And so there are a couple different possibilities of acquiring some property. I've got a slide that kind of shows you where we're at and some possibilities. The pink square right there, that's where we currently reside. That's on Bourbon Street. It is the Emmaus Kitchen. It is a laundry facility. There's several things in that building. And then on the other side of the parking lot is our office and the current men's shelter that's currently above that will be turned into the family shelter. And so to be able to purchase that, I've talked with an appraiser and gotten an estimated cost of $300,000 to purchase the property and both of those buildings to have that as a permanent facility moving forward for the Gathering Place. The other option, because the back building behind that little pink square, that's the building that's being turned into the men's shelter, the expansion of the men's shelter. So we will not have a place for the cold weather shelter beyond our normal capacity next year. That's the space we just started leasing. There are lots of properties around the area that we could potentially purchase and build a permanent cold weather shelter, storm shelter, really provide general needs to that community. And that's one of the things that we're asking you to consider. So again, talk to an appraiser and a contractor. And for a building that would be 35 by 50, estimated cost for that and the property, $250,000 to $300,000. So those are a couple things we'd love for you to consider in terms of making our ability to care for this community a permanent presence here. So love to answer any questions that you may have about that.
What questions does any court member have for the Gathering Place?
Map there, but look behind the pink, all the those trailers that go back through. That would be included with that appraisal of 300,000.
No, it's a separate property.
It's a whole separate property.
Yeah, it's owned by her brother, Ron Sharp, and it is something we'd love to own all of that. And the trailers, either use those or build transitional housing. And again, that's that step. Working with Circle, someone agrees to go through an 18-month program. So after they get to a point of a little bit more responsibility, maybe they've been at the shelter for 6 months or a year, they enter a program where they're committed to growing and not repeating. At that point, that could be a place where we offer them at a very low rent, so they have the ability to build some savings to put down. So we would love to purchase that as well eventually.
So the Gathering Place currently doesn't use those trailers back through there?
No, they're.
Oh, okay.
Some of the people.
They were still together.
No, a lot of the people sometimes move in there.
Okay.
The rent's around $300 a month, so it's one of the cheapest places in the county. And just proximity, they're aware of it.
All the times I've been out there, I always assumed that was.
Yeah. No, actually, none of the property belongs to us. We have 3 separate leases.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, your current funding, where do you get your funds from now to operate?
All of that comes through donation. There are some local churches. There are, the city and the county give some funding. We have lots of different grants, whether it be Toyota, United Way, and then personal commitments to the shelter, as well as we have a few fundraising events that we have throughout the year. So that's where all the funding comes from. Yep.
From your main fundraiser that's held annually,
the gala?
The gala, you get a significant amount of capital for for your yearly expenses.
Yeah, it's about probably a fifth of our budget. Our yearly budget comes out of that event. And the last couple of years, it's increased each time. I think, Denise, do you remember, was it about $60,000 we raised? $75,000 we raised last year at that event. And if you've never been, it's a really good time. It really is. Love to have you.
You know, they auction off April's phone bill, April's water bill, that kind of opportunity for people to give specifically, which I think is very effective.
Yeah, it's a good time. It's been a great event. It's grown every year in terms of the people, but also the funding for that.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So talking about where the orange squares were, and talking about a cold weather shelter, what else would you use that for when it's only used maybe 25, 30 nights a year?
Yeah, and one of the things we could do with that, so we have a smaller community room right now. As we estimated the cost of that building, we said, what if we put 4 restrooms in there and a kitchen where we could actually feed more people? Most of the people have to stand outside and eat, or we have to just give the food and they walk back home or whatever. So when it wasn't in use as a cold weather shelter, it could be a larger area for the community for gatherings. We do a Christmas party and give gifts away.
Okay.
And we just don't have space for people to gather. They stand outside in a line in the cold because we just don't have the capacity. So tons of different opportunities built to the right specs. It could be a storm shelter for the people in the trailers or other people right there. So lots of potential uses. Even some storage, because we like to, when people move into a permanent residence, if we have a bed for them or some sort of furniture that's been donated, we can't afford to rent space to do that. But if we had some space reserved, that would be a great way to get people started.
But what you just shared as well is that as you upgrade the area that's been used for the cold weather shelter, as it stands, you won't really have the space for a cold weather shelter.
Correct.
Unless something happens.
Yeah, unless something else became available, we figured something out. And we've been running a waiting list all year. So we think that the needs are growing, obviously. And we've been running a waiting list on the women's shelter and the men's shelter. And we're excited to be able to offer, you know how hard it is to say to a single dad with kids who's homeless and they have nowhere to sleep, sorry, we have nowhere for you. So that call comes in occasionally, and we're really looking forward to having a space for that. So, Denise, did you want to say something?
I did want to share that.
Denise, if you'd come back up to.
Although, so there was 50 nights that it was actually 32 degrees and under. But since November to up to this point, there's only been about 5 nights that have been over 40 degrees. So even with the shelter, we have been open since the end of November. We talked in January and started that right away, but we are still open. We were going to hopefully close that as far as today, but we're looking at that cold weather and the rain coming in through the week. So we'll probably still go till Monday. So we're still looking at, November, December, January, February, March, going into April. So I think that would be used a whole lot more than what you'd think even through those winter times, because 40 degrees is still cold.
Mm-hmm.
And especially you throw this rain on top of it that's coming in. And I believe that once something is more stable and it's there, people are just going to know it. And I think we'll probably end up having more people that actually do come in and utilize it, because I still feel that there's still people out there that aren't coming in and utilizing it, coming into the property right there.
So specifically, the request is for capital to help with that structure. The property that you are proposing that it goes on, you all own that now, is that right?
We do not own any property. So
it would cost the property acquisition plus the structure.
Yep.
Okay.
In talking to the appraiser, he thinks the lots are about $35,000. He thinks is the value.
But you're not sure even if the owner would sell it.
No, we're not. We haven't approached any of the empty lots. We haven't approached. We have approached Donna Darnell about purchasing the office in the Emmaus kitchen, and she would like to do that, to be able to do that. And we've been praying for God to open opportunities and doors, and so There are other, we would love to eventually own that back part with the trailers, the front part where we're doing the feeding and the men's shelter, and a place to do a cold weather shelter. So we're going after all of that. And what we're asking you guys is, would you contribute to one of those needs? So obviously the shelter is an important need in the community, but the cold weather shelter is also something that has been really successful and obviously a need.
Other questions? So what we will do now with your all's request and the Amen House and Elizabeth Village is we'll look at that holistically with our total budget process. And we'll go through that process, and then we'll get, we'll let people know what we're planning on doing as we get closer to that time to vote on a budget. But with Parks and Rec, it was a time-sensitive item, whereas your all's request, we'll just take it through the budget process. Today is a fact-finding, listening to information. And if there's no other questions, then Griff, thank you. Denise, thank you.
And I'll send you those numbers and those potential.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you mind sharing the PowerPoint?
Not at all.
Okay.
Be happy to do that. So who do I send that to?
Send it to me, and I'll get it out.
Okay, great.
He works for us.
Yeah. Thank you guys very much. I appreciate your time. Appreciate what you do in the community.
Just
Candace?
kidding.
Thanks, Griff.
Just kidding.
Thanks, Griff.
Cold?
You all also have a PowerPoint as well.
I think she's pulling it up.
Appreciate you being with us today as well.
Yeah. So while she's pulling that up, I think hopefully most of you all know us, but my name's Candace Whitehouse. I'm the executive director of Elizabeth Village, and this is Emily Metcalf, and she's our program developer. And we typically try to come to the fiscal court meetings once a year just because you all have been supporters of ours for the past few years financially, but then also in other ways as well. And so we like to just keep you updated on how our programs are doing and how the Elizabeth Village is growing. And then today we wanted to update you on our biggest project to date. So I just was going to run through, if the PowerPoint could get pulled up, run through our programs just to refresh your memory on who we are and what we're doing. But we're a nonprofit in Scott County that serve women and children who are experiencing homelessness, poverty, and domestic violence. We have 3 main programs we do that through. The first is our transitional home, which is on College Street, which most people are familiar with and really associate us with. That's kind of how the community knows us best. That's been open since 2013, and that serves women and children who are experiencing just general homelessness. It's a long-term program that's working with them to make it to self-sufficiency so that way they can live in our community and be independent. And then we kept that program open during the COVID-19 pandemic. We did have to cut back to half capacity to make sure we could keep everyone safe while serving. We are back up to 75% capacity and hope to go back up to 100% late summer, early fall, as long as everything keeps going well with the pandemic. So we did continue to function that program and feel like that program is continuing to add a lot of value to our community. It does frequently have waiting lists, so there is a high need for it, but we do believe in what is happening there. And then our next slide, please. Our homelessness prevention outreach program was started in 2017, and that was created in response to women and children calling who are at risk of becoming homeless. So they were 7, 14, 21 days away from becoming homeless, and we did not want to just wait for them to call back once that homelessness had occurred. So we did research and saw that in the state of Kentucky there was a big movement towards homelessness prevention, and so we began that program so that way we could stop families from losing housing, spiraling into homelessness, and all that comes with that tragedy. So kind of in a metaphor, like stopping the bleeding before it gets too bad. That program has really grown since 2017. We feel very lucky that that was open during the pandemic. That was our most used program during the pandemic when families were trying to navigate a time that no one expected. And a lot of families who had never faced poverty like that were facing poverty in that way. And so that program was really able to do things like landlord-tenant advocacy, rental assistance, trying to keep people housed in a time that was so precarious. So that program did really well during that time and still continues to do well. We also, as July of last year, acquired our second federal grant called TBRA. It's tenant-based rental assistance, and that allows us to do short and long-term financial assistance for our outreach clients. And so we are doing rental assistance while we're also working with them on self-sufficiency skills, but that gives us time to keep them housed and keep them where they're at while either trying to find a place that they can better afford or raising their income so that way they can afford where they're living. And so that program really helps us to assist clients in really reaching independence while they are staying housed. Lastly, that program oversees K-Count, which is an important program that Kentucky Housing Corporation puts on every year. It's normally the last Wednesday of January. This year it was the last Wednesday of February, but we are the county rep for that. So for years, Scott County was reporting that we had 0 homeless here in our community. Elizabeth Village realized that error, and so we are now the county rep for that K-Count. And so each year for the last 4 years, I believe, we have headed that count up and been able to report numbers to KHC. So the state is seeing that homelessness is an issue here in our community. And when things like grants or different kinds of resources are being allotted, they know that Scott County has that issue and can allot that appropriately. So if we can do the next slide, please. And our third program is the Elizabeth Village Domestic Violence Victims Advocacy Program. This program started in March of 2020, which was not a great time to start a program, but it started and has been doing well. So we've gotten lots of calls from women who are needing immediate assistance for domestic violence. And while we don't have a physical shelter for those clients, this advocate can provide services such as advocacy in the courtroom, financial assistance, case management, anything that she can do to immediately help them with their situation and try to move them into safe, affordable housing. Each year, that program has also grown, and in the past year, we've seen a growth, which is not something that we love, but we know that women are finding out that we are here and have a great program, and they can call and receive services. Next slide, please. So in our general funding request for the past few years, you all have allotted us $10,000. And for our general request, we are requesting $15,000 this year. That is a slight increase because our programs are growing in demand, and we have to keep raising our capacity to be able to serve the women and children that are calling. And so we are just requesting a little bit more. And all those dollars would go back directly back into those programs that I just outlined, the programs that are already existing and already functioning. So that would be what that general request is coming from. And then the next slide is actually a short video, if we can click on that.
Yeah, at Elizabeth Village, we always know that there are ways we can grow and improve and that there are so many unmet needs in our community. So we announced an exciting thing that's happening here at Elizabeth Village at our annual fundraiser in February, and we played this video, so it kind of speaks for itself.
Here in Scott County, we are very low on resources for women and children who are experiencing abuse in their homes.
The way that things currently are with the shelters that are available in our area, if there's a woman who wants to leave an abusive relationship, she has to either go to Frankfort or Lexington or Richmond. And that means uprooting her entire life, leaving behind friends and family, and that is considering that there's even a space available for her in those 3 places, because if there's not, she has to travel even farther away. So as it is now, the options are relocate, stay in that relationship, start couch surfing between friends and family members, or become homeless. So having a resource in our community where women can go to be safe and not have to relocate and leave behind their support systems could make all the difference.
Often we get calls from women who are in urgent need of a physical place to go and be safe. And unfortunately, we have not been able to meet that need yet here in our community.
More often than not, we have to turn them away because we don't have anywhere to put them. So we have to tell them that they need to go somewhere else. And it's heartbreaking for us to have to deliver that bad news, and I imagine it's really heartbreaking for them to hear also.
Serving women is something we feel so passionate about, and we care about these women here in our communities, and we want to make sure that they have all of the resources they need so that they don't have to leave their support systems or their work.
Elizabeth Village is so excited to announce that after years of hard work and support from you, that we have acquired a property and we will be opening a domestic violence shelter here in our community. We are so excited about this home. We are already started on renovations on the home and looking forward to including you on this journey to open the doors.
The property that we have now is amazing, and it has a house on it that's also amazing, but it's just that. It's a house and it's not a shelter. So we need your help to turn it into the shelter of our dreams.
We can never do this alone. Our campaign, we chose to call more than a number because we have been looking at statistics and we've been looking at needs and money and really trying to figure out if this is something we needed to do. And a lot of times it's easy to look at that number. We served 45 individuals last year, and someone may think, oh, I thought that number would have been higher or lower. But what's important to remember is that these are people that deserve to feel safe and they deserve to feel loved.
We know that people here in Scott County believe that everyone deserves a safe place and a place that they don't have to live in fear each and every day. With your help, I'm sure that soon we will be opening the doors of a program that gives us just that.
So we are so excited that we're finally getting to make this dream a reality. This is something that we've been working on since I became part of Elizabeth Village in 2017. We've looked at so many properties, so many different opportunities, and nothing felt right until we came across this property, and we did close on that in January, and we're so excited about it. In the PowerPoint, we have a picture of the house. It is located on a double lot, which is what makes it so enticing. So we plan on renovating that existing building so that it can house shelter and beds for our residents, and then building an addition onto that property that will house the community spaces, the therapy rooms, and offices for staff. So we're anticipating that being an 18-bed facility, which is going to be able to house a lot more individuals. So we're very excited about that. And something that is important to note is it is in city limits, and so that's something that a lot of people might wonder why we chose to do that. But as we did research and looked at best practices for serving individuals experiencing domestic violence, having shelter accessible and having it in town is actually a huge benefit. If it's out of county, there's a lot of transportation issues when it comes to that. Survivors feel that they need to be hidden away. So living in a place where it's in their community, it gives them that confidence that they deserve to live here, they deserve to feel safe, they deserve to walk to resources. And so we're very excited it's in town, and it is right in walking distance of us, it's in walking distance of the police department. So we feel sure that we're going to be able to make that a safe building as well. That will require 24/7 staff presence as well, so that's going to be a huge growth for our program. But our campaign, we are anticipating we'll need to raise $1.5 million. So that does include renovation of the building and building that addition, but it also includes 3 years of operating expenses, just so we can build ourselves a safety net as we grow and make sure that it's a sustainable way to grow. So we're estimating that the cost to renovate will be about $400,000 to $500,000. We're working with the contractor right now, and that's the estimate he sent us as of now. And then our 3 years of operating expenses are going to be about $960,000. So we are asking for about $250,000 from the ARPA funds just to help us with that campaign goal.
So on the next slide, we know that there are a lot of worthy causes that you all are getting a lot of requests, and that we do not envy being in your shoes. But we wanted to talk about why we felt like we were a worthy cause to contribute to. And the number one reason, the reason that we get up and go do our jobs every day, and at the end of the day why we decide that we're going to return and keep chugging along, is that we are turning women away every single day, that they're calling and they feel in danger in their home, like their lives are not safe and their children's lives are not safe, and that we are just saying no, that we don't have a place for you to go in Scott County. And so that just reason number one.
And we're also anticipating serving about 60 individuals in that program. So we have spaces and beds designated for emergency stays. So example would be someone is at the sheriff's department. It's the middle of the night. They're needing safety. They can call us, and we'll have that emergency bed where we can just get them placed and work on safety planning. But then it also will have a transitional long-term program. So if someone needs that additional support, is struggling to find permanency or housing, they can stay there longer term and get placed.
Yeah, and another thing that we have developed over the past few years as we have been serving domestic violence victims, we have been working a lot with Scott County Sheriff's Department, Georgetown Police Department, first responders, and we know that those programs are stretched thin and that they are not funded to the point that everyone would love for them to be, and that they have a lot on their plate and they're getting lots of different kinds of calls. And so we've tried to come alongside of them, and so when they are getting those domestic violence calls, the Sheriff's Department and Police Department have both started to give us calls so that way we can help them with filing EPOs or trying to find safe places for the women and children, or just trying to get them connected with the resources that they need. So we hope that this shelter would alleviate some work off of the Scott County Sheriff's Department.
And the ARPA request of $250,000, that is a one-time ask. It is a capital investment into a program that is going to serve women and children for years to come.
Sorry, I can't see. So we served 45 clients last year through our advocacy program. 17 of those women would have used shelter had we had it. And so we know that that number would be more if we could advertise that we had that safe place. Those women, since we did not have a shelter, either had to choose homelessness, couch serve, relocate to a different community, which is not ideal because a lot of people have jobs here, or their kids are in school here, or they have family. Any kind of support they do have, we don't want to rip that away from them by relocating them. And so that's not an ideal solution to folks needing shelter.
And then also, domestic violence is just a very complicated and far-reaching issue. Our advocate has had clients that are college students, who are grandmothers, all different kinds of income levels. So it is a issue that affects all populations. And studies show that it takes about 7 tries for an individual to call and seek help. So imagine it's that 7th time and you answer the phone and they're not able to get placed. So it is so important that when someone does call, that we're able to say yes, we're able to get them placed, and that they're able to get the support they need.
And then lastly, we just wanted to point out that this is supported by the comprehensive plan, which we know that is an important document, especially for folks sitting in government seats. And so in the comprehensive plan, it really emphasizes reusing structures and renovating old buildings for new programs instead of starting from scratch. And so we are doing that, which is a more cost-effective way to go about our campaign. And it also in the comprehensive plan says that we as a community want to focus on making sure that homeless individuals who are going hungry, who are needing shelter, are getting connected to resources. And so this is definitely fulfilling that emphasis in the comp plan. So that was something else that we wanted to point out. And Emily is going to pass out our campaign brochures for you to take with you. There is some of the same information that we've delivered today, but also some new information as well. I did want to point out that Emily and I, our downtown office is...
Thank you. This way.
That way? Yes, that way. Okay, I can see. So you don't even have to drive anywhere. You can just stop by. We are the bright purple door on Court Street, so we're easy to find. We'd love to chat with you one-on-one. We'd love to answer questions. If you would like any additional documentation, such as any of the quotes we received or the feasibility study that we conducted, anything of that sort, we'd be happy to provide you a copy with that. We just didn't want to flood you with too many documents today and cut down a lot of trees. So if you do want anything else, we'd be happy to do that. But as of right now, if anybody has any questions at the top of your head, we're happy to answer those.
How much do you guys work with the gathering place?
We do a lot of referring back and forth, for sure.
I have a question. You mentioned the longer-term needs. What do you consider long-term in the new facility? How long will the average person, do you think, stay? Is there a limit on how long that can go? What is
Yeah,
your
so
longer-term
we
plan?
think that we're going to frame it as similar to our transitional home, which our max for a transitional home is 12 months. I don't anticipate that a lot of the women in the emergency shelter will need that long, because a lot of times it's just a matter of them being able to find their footing. But it just depends on the severity of the domestic violence and how long it's been going on. We've had women that have come out of 30-year relationships and they've never had a job, never had their own bank account, things like that. So that takes a lot longer to rebuild rather than somebody who kind of has their own resources. They just need to be able to access them. So I think it'll definitely depend on the individual, and that's why we wanted to have the emergency element and the long-term transitional so we can be meeting both of those needs.
Rick?
This button's not working.
I was just wondering, I think you might have hit on it. So most of your clientele is Scott County folks?
Yes, we do emphasize our programs or prioritize Scott County residents. However, we do serve folks who are coming in from other communities because that also is happening.
Any other questions?
You guys have a fundraiser next month?
Next,
It'll be fun?
Next month, yes. Our board president, Mayor Mabry, is putting on a golf scramble for us. We're very grateful for her, and all of the funds raised that day will be going back towards our capital campaign. So that's our first ever golf scramble, and we have had to do almost no work for that, so that's an ideal fundraiser for us.
I think the teams are filled up, aren't they?
Yeah, Mara has maxed out the teams, so if you didn't sign up, you missed the boat.
Still probably sponsorships available.
Yes, and you can write a check, I'm always willing to do that.
You don't even have to golf, do you?
Yeah, you don't even have to
Write a
go.
check and be a sponsor.
You can go ride around on the beer cart if you'd like. So
That's fantastic. We really appreciate what you do for our community and loving on people when they're in a really tough spot.
yeah,
I'm sure there'll be other questions. We'll compile those and
yeah. Feel free to
those.
reach out or just stop by. We're there.
And we can get that PowerPoint as well.
Would you
Yes.
send the PowerPoint to me as well?
Yes, we will do that.
Yes, and I forgot.
Or
to
just
mention-
drop it off?
Yeah. I forgot to mention, we did go through all the right channels, so it does have all of the zoning approved and all of that. So we're working closely with planning and zoning too, if that's a concern. So.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And you're going to go to Zoom, okay. And then last but not least,
Everybody's disappearing.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. I'll get you this information, no doubt.
I think we just saw him recently.
Thank you.
Actually, I may do well at people then. Yeah. So yes, I went old school. You've got mine on paper, guys. My name is Michelle Carlisle, and I am the director at the Amen House, which is our local food pantry. You have a couple things that I've put in front of you. The paper-clipped version is our yearly budget request. You guys have supported the Amen House in its mission of ending hunger for definitely as long as I've been here. This will make 6 years coming up soon that I've been entrusted with leadership at the Amen House, and the very bold mission of not just fighting hunger, but ending hunger in Scott County. We don't stand still on that mission. We are actively pursuing avenues to seek hunger out where it lives. The one I'm most proud of this year is our new partnership with Scott County Schools. We sent out a survey report through Miss Housekeeper to all the schools in the county. And what we thought was true was that there might be some inequity between the backpack, the weekend meal programs. And so we thought that was true, but we wanted to check. And what we found out is that some of our schools are served really, really well. And some of our schools, if they don't kind of have a mega church behind them, we're not being served so well. So very quickly, in January of this year, we picked up 3 schools. Scott County Middle School was the first one. They called us before the survey was even compiled and kind of checked us and was like, do you mean what you say? And within a few weeks, we had launched a backpack program with them. The other two elementary schools kind of let us roll out our plan, and we picked up Stamping Ground Elementary and Ann Mason Elementary as part of our pilot program this year. We do anticipate more schools coming onto that, so you do see an uptick in our request for our general budget, and that is part of that reason. We anticipate the budget for that next year alone will cost about between $33,000 and $35,000 to ensure that those children are fed on top of all of the other programs that we already have going at the Amen House. And the one that I am most excited about is the other loose packet, and that is our request for ARPA funding. I totally appreciate that from the first day I heard about ARPA funding to standing here before you now, things keep changing. And a lot of the structures around that funding have been loosened, and I personally see that as a good thing, because I stand in front of people that I trust and know that you have been entrusted in deciding what works best within your community. Where are pockets that need to be strengthened here, and where do you think that money should go? Well, my entire first sheet on there kind of talks about how Scott County survived COVID-19. I think it's interesting that what I lovingly call the doomsday meetings happened in this very room that I'm standing today. All of the major entities were called in. Mike Hannigan was here with EMA. Dr. Miller was here. The city was here. The county was here. The sheriff's office was here. And we were really trying to get in front of COVID-19. We weren't exactly for sure what was coming, and we weren't exactly for sure what we even need to put into place. But the Amen House was part of that conversation, and we are very thankful to be considered a safety net in this community. I think we did just that. I think we held strong. I'm not going to read all of this to you, I promise. But I do think we held strong. A third of our volunteers walked away because they needed to better serve their families by protecting their families. We had to completely reconfigure how we distributed food so that we did it safely. We worked alongside Dr. Miller to make sure all of those things were in place, and the Amen House never closed. I can't say that for all of the communities across the state. I kept seeing reports of food banks closing because their volunteers led more often than not. And more often than not, they were led by that population that was most vulnerable during COVID. So seeing those things happen was heartbreaking, but it encouraged us even more with the 2/3 of the volunteers that we had left to just get together and figure out how. What is it going to look like? What does it mean to deliver food to someone you know is COVID positive? Because that's what this community asked us to step up and do. And we did just that. We did it safely with guidelines and all of those things intact. We said yes to every single opportunity for food that could have been brought into this community. You see $2.3 million on this in the heart of COVID. Usually it's about half that, to be honest. We always put over $1 million worth of food in this community, but during COVID, we said yes to everything. We blocked this parking lot down here off and did some of our distributions with the extra federal food that was coming in. Very quickly figured out we needed more capacity than that because the people that were showing up needing food far surpassed the people who normally showed up to the Amen House. So we said yes to all of those things. So I feel like I come before you hoping that you think Scott County is stronger when the Amen House is stronger. It's a really big ask that you have in front of you. It's an ask for, I'm not supposed to say $500,000 because that makes my board scared. But it's $500,000. $500,000 is the request for ARPA funding. We feel like things are aligning, and there's an opportunity that was presented to us to purchase property at the corner of Washington and Paris Pike. You might know it as MLS Motorsports. They reached out to us, not to get into all of their details, but they have long been a supporter of the Amen House and the work that we're doing. And so they reached out to us to see if we would be interested in purchasing this property. We do have a letter of intent to purchase that has been signed by both properties. The asking price is $1.5 million. swear everybody who said anything this morning. Everything is so expensive, but those are the real numbers in front of us. Hargett Construction lets us know the renovations we're looking at on that property to get it up and moving are estimated at about $400,000. So we are at a total investment of 1.9. I don't know if you guys saw the newspaper this week, but we are on our way to making that happen. The state legislator believes in this project, and they have given us that same number that I'm asking you guys for, $500,000 this week. I think everything's going to go through. They tell me it's not official until the middle of April when everything is official. But we anticipate that money coming alongside of us, which takes a breath off of the piece of that puzzle that the Amen House needs to figure out. And then we are asking you guys to believe in us as well and see if we can move this project forward.
What questions does anyone have for Ms. Carlisle?
Michelle?
Yes.
I thought there was a few years ago that you all purchased property on North Hamilton.
Yes.
Build some type of facility, and if my memory serves correctly, you all had brought I remember seeing plans at some point.
Yes, we have been here before.
Yeah. Where are you? Where are you at with the status with that?
Sure. So the short version of that conversation is we learned a lot. We had another beautiful opportunity where we walked into someone offering us the property. We did purchase that property. We have 14 acres of beautiful farmland with no infrastructure. So the projection on that, on the build to build a 25,000 square foot operational warehouse is around $5 million. $1 million at least of that in the ground before we can ever put anything on top of it. There have definitely been conversations, definitely with even my board of directors, of, okay, what if we don't build the warehouse? What if we put up a pole barn? What if we do this? What if we do that? We still started $1 million underneath the earth. It has no sewer. It would require a pump station. They've quoted us $250,000 pump station to even move the water to and from there, just based on logistics and how that works. So at this point, that land is there. That land is ours. But I do think, knowing what we know now, we think this is the option moving forward. We think it can do more than just relocate the Amen House. We have bigger dreams than that. There are so many dreams like in this room today, but we have bigger dreams than that. We do hope to make an expansion on those things. You can see our dreams kind of outlined in phases in front of you. But we see potential. It's 4 acres with an infrastructure underneath it. It's not a perfect infrastructure, so we understand that some of those dreams are going to have to coincide with Georgetown Municipal Water and their plans. We can't dream faster than they dream. But we are in contact with them and trying to work through that process. We do think by the time we are actually taking occupancy and could be moving forward on creating new kitchens and things along those lines, that the water support will be there when we're ready. Yeah, but yes, we own 14 acres at the end of North Hamilton. It's a beautiful grassy lot.
What would be your plan for that if you were able to move forward with the MLS site?
Sure. So I do not speak for the board. I speak for Michelle Carlisle. But I do think there's a potential that once the property is ours, and I do not think before the property is ours, because everything isn't final until it's final, that is very possible we would be looking at selling that property in the future. I look at it, we have a phase 1 EPA study that came back clean on it. We would need a phase 2 EPA study before we could put anything in the dirt. But I also think, in the meantime, if it's on the market for a little bit, we could always grow food there. But we would be one EPA study away from that being able to happen. That was always the dream when we looked out there. Yes, we had more than we needed, some of it kind of down in the floodplain. What would it look like to actually raise food down by the creek and all of that fun stuff? But that's a whole nother dream that we'll see. We'll have to see where that lands.
Do you have an recent appraisal on that property if you were to sell it?
On the farmland? No,
Yes.
we do not. No, we have not moved forward on that. We are guessing it was a good investment, and we will make money off of that deal. But
Do you have an appraisal on the MLS site?
on the MLS site itself, we have not come that far. They have an asking price on that, and based on their asking price, we made them an offer. There's a lot of pieces of that puzzle that are still up in the air. They do need, obviously, they're not going to close their thriving business just to give us their building. So they are in the works of securing their own property. It would be a build, which is another reason why I think these timelines align beautifully. It's at least my understanding is that the funds for ARPA need to be allocated, but potentially not spent immediately. So I do think it gives us the flexibility on that to figure out how those timelines would work well, and definitely invite you guys into those conversations.
What other questions would anyone have? Rick?
Kind of the same question I asked
Sure.
on the last Elizabeth house. So your client is basically Scott County folks. Do you have a way to monitor that? Is that the case?
So sure. So we are entrusted with federal feeding programs from the USDA called TFAP and CSFP. To qualify for those programs, you have to live in Scott County. You have to be able to prove Scott County residency. That's not to say that we don't support a sometimes transient homeless population that might be passing through and needing food on the way. But the absolute core of our, we call them members, of our members to the Amen House live right here in Scott County and have to prove that they live right here in Scott County.
Thank you. Any other questions? We really appreciate, as said, loving on people and feeding people and just doing what you all do, and appreciate the opportunity to hear about the plan, and we will make sure this is part of the whole consideration.
Awesome.
So thanks so much.
Awesome. And I will welcome you guys any day. If you want to come see the Amen House in action, today would have been a beautiful, hectic day. The first of the month plus spring break caused a little traffic jam in our parking lot this morning. But I would love to invite you guys in, even if it's just to stop by and see what we're doing. If you mark out too much time, we'll put you to work because there's plenty to do and food is heavy. But
Before you step away,
Sure.
I've been down, and I'm sure many of our court has, but you currently operate out of the basement of the annex of the church.
Yes.
Not a lot of square feet. And then you do have some off-site storage.
We have lots of off-site storage.
I'm using that loosely.
Yeah.
But, this plan would consolidate everything to one site. Is that correct?
So the big plan, yes. So the initial plan would bring us under about 8,000 square feet of operational space. So it would be much improved. But I don't see with phase one, until we can get the second building weatherized, which hopefully is in your details, I don't see us being able to step away from the growers building. That massive warehouse space that we are using in cooperation with Kentucky Growers, Central Kentucky Growers, it just lets us bring in that chaos of the high school food drives when nothing is sorted and nothing is organized, and to have that much space to spread out. I do think in the short term, we would still continue that partnership and hope that that partnership works, but be able to bring most everything else centralized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't interpret it as that as
No.
having some need for
Right.
the grower space, because that's not the case.
Right.
I think it's being well used with your all's.
So that works great, and it's about the only location we have that we can literally drive a fork truck through and unload semis and all of
I
those
was just-
pieces of it.
Just making sure that, this eventually this would consolidate you to one spot. And, I've been a part of many of those food drives, and, you all do great work. And, that food drive with the high schools, the ownership that kids get in that lesson of being a part of our community, we can't put a dollar on either. So really appreciate what you all do, and thanks for your time today. Rick.
So it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the need is growing.
So yes, the need overall is growing. We have come back down from pandemic numbers, which is from pandemic numbers. So at our peak was right in the heart of COVID-19. And I am thankful to say that those numbers are not where they were. We have bounced back down to our pre-pandemic numbers, so we're only serving about 3,000 individuals a month right now, which I think is still staggering that there are that many families and that many individuals that need to lean on food assistance, but it's just our reality. It's where we are. I think the tipping point is being able to, one, rescue more food. That's one of my big deals. And while you can see that we put $2.3 million, but our food budget is only $120,000. It is so important that we be able to rescue food, which means we don't throw it away. Like, we go into grocery stores and restaurants and rescue food that otherwise would have been tossed in the trash or composted, and try to get it to people while it's still good.
You gotta have cooler space.
We have to have cooler space. We have to have freezers. Quite honestly, I need a flash freezer and a conveyor belt system so that we can go into places that we're not even inside of yet. God's Pantry, who is our big brother, asked us, oh my goodness, it was right after I came on, so we're probably 5 years out from them asking us to be a pilot program for Georgetown Hospital and capturing the food that would have been cooked in that program, in that kitchen, and rescuing it, because there are programs like that they've seen modeled elsewhere. There's no way. There is no way I could promise that I could keep that food temperature safe, get it frozen, and all of those things just for a lack of space. That's one of our tipping points for me. We do about 200 homebound food deliveries right now. Some of these sweet ladies and gentlemen that we deliver to can no longer pick up a 10-pound bag of potatoes. Like, we can deliver it because we have it, but it doesn't make sense for them. So I think some of our most vulnerable populations would really serve well from those pre-made meals. And right now, not to say anything against the hospital, because we can't offer it, we can't come in and rescue it because we're not equipped to do it. So some of those are the dreams of how we could strengthen those programs and do better. And then, like I've said, kind of when I first got up here, like, we're not standing still on hunger. We are literally trying to meet it wherever it lives, if that means homebound deliveries, if that means expanding help with our children in the school systems and doing backpacks for that. We are open to what those next steps look like. I know the Gathering Place does a beautiful job serving meals as well, but you see it in here. We dream of having a soup kitchen someday that's literally open 3 meals a day. We currently have some of that TFAP allocation, food that could come from the U.S. government, that could be cooked and prepared and served. We just don't have a place to do it.
Well, along with that same question, we're talking about wanting to stamp out hunger.
Yes.
So, what do you think's causing it? I mean, what's driving? Is there, I don't know.
So my honest opinion is housing costs here. But I don't feel like I can fix that, or at least I haven't been called to fix that. I think if people could pay less in rent, they could afford their food. Scott County is special. When you look at the percentages for food insecurity in Scott County, even next to the ones around it. So Feeding America does that data. I'm not a statistician. I didn't do it. But I believe in their data that they give me. And they tell me that 45% of food insecure families in Scott County live above any government assistance. So they live above food stamps, they live above WIC, they technically live above TFAP and CSFP are feeding programs. Now, food insecurity only means that they are not sure, maybe once a calendar year, how they would put food on the table. So it's kind of a broad stroke. But so many of our families are living paycheck to paycheck, are living right alongside that. And when they're paying 75% or 80% of their take-home income to housing, I feel like that is the root cause of hunger in Scott County. I don't know how to fix that. But making sure that there's enough food here, that everybody in our community has something to eat, that I feel like is tangible. And it's real, a lot of that, because we throw so much of it away. But I feel like we can say yes to that. We can say that nobody should be hungry here. I just believe that. And that's my focus on solving that. And I hope that there are powers that be that can that can come in and figure out a way for there to be affordable housing in Scott County.
Michelle, thank you.
Jared.
Jared.
Michelle, I just want to say thank you for looking at food waste, because that is one of the number one drivers amongst landfills across the country. So that's the point. That's an excellent point. I read that all the time. Food waste is number one in landfills. So
Right. It's
to avert that as a community or across the nation would be an excellent thing.
like, for me, that's ridiculous that we throw it away.
That's a great comment.
Like, it's crazy that we throw it away.
Can I make a comment?
This is David. He's
Dave,
my
come-
building team committee chair and on my
I just want
board.
to throw in something here.
You're probably gonna have to.
Come on to the.
I just, I see, I'm behind the scenes with the Amen House. And I'm one of the people that rescued the food. And I have a heart for making sure that somehow we have a process. You cannot believe the number of sack lunches we give out a day. Those sack lunches are prepared in a means to be able to process in a fashion what we rescue. And I substitute sometimes for Walmart, just to give you an example. The days I rescue, I have to weigh the food by Feed America requirements. I rescue, and from Walmart, we rescue 1,200 to 1,400 pounds of food a day. Now, that can be in the form of oranges, 20 cases one day of overripe bananas. All of this goes back to the Amen House. And we somehow managed to prepare sack lunches out of that for folks and feed them. And I just interject that because if we didn't have the resources of volunteers and this program that Feed America have set up, you can't imagine the food that goes to a dumpster. From all of these different groceries, we rescue from Panera, we rescue from Starbucks, we rescue from Dollar General now, we rescue from Big Lots, we rescue from
Chick-fil-A,
yes,
Little Caesars.
9 or 10. And we do that on a daily basis. I do it 3 days a week. Some others do it 2 and 3 days a week, just so that we can get it processed to feed people. And it just, from what we're presenting to you today and what we're asking for from ARPA funds and so forth, we need a clean kitchen. We need a way to process. I picked up 70 pounds of frozen deli meat this morning from Kroger's. And that's on an average of 3 days a week. That needs to go back to a clean kitchen somewhere that we have people who are registered by the health department that can better process that into food for folks.
We're going to get there.
I just want to share that.
Well, thank you for all you.
Far beyond.
Thank you for all you do.
Volunteers that we have.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other comments from any court member? Anyone else? Any comments? Well, with that said, then we'll adjourn our workshop and we'll be back here on Friday for a regular business meeting. 9 a.m. Thank you all. Mike Hennigan wants to ask if